Hello everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this first Acropolis industry panel. I and Kamil Chudas are actually standing in for Radoslav Piziewicz, who unfortunately couldn't make it because of a travel issue. So to briefly firstly go through the program for this panel. Initially there's going to be a introduction from me. Following this, there's going to be a bit more detail on the partnership program of the Acropolis project, which is basically a way of Acropolis interacting with industry to obtain feedback from industry on the approaches that Acropolis is taking and the important research questions that the project should answer, and also for the various industry members to obtain information on the important outcomes of the project. This is followed by some presentations by the industry guests who correlate quite strongly with the panel members, the industry partnership panel members of the Acropolis project. There's a coffee break halfway through these presentations, followed by the continuation of the presentations, and then some general discussion driven by the observations of the panelists. Oh, there should be a laser, I think. There's no, the laser. The pointer, yeah.
It is. It doesn't. The biggest.
This is good.
So
Do we have
a this button?
Okay, brilliant. Great. Okay, so the Acropolis project was formed in 2010, and it involves 16 partners, all but one who are from the academic sector. It's funded through a European Union Framework Programme 7 grant, and the duration of the project is 3 years. However, the project aims to achieve forms of long-term integration, for example, through generating web-based tools that will facilitate platforms to be created that have long-term viewpoints on the applicability of various technologies. It also aims to achieve various forms of dissemination and interactivity, for example, through collaboration with a number of regulators and impacts to standards bodies. A main aspect of the project is to foster collaboration among its various members and also with the outside world. For example, maximizing the benefits of the research that's going on in the cognitive radio world through the philosophy that the sum of the parts when they're interacting is more than the sum of the parts operating independently. And the project is based around the general network of excellence structure, which involves 3 three aspects. One is integration, which is essentially the collaboration among the different partners involved in the project. The organisation of educational aspects such as summer schools, PhD courses, for example, on particular topics of relevance to cognitive radio. Another aspect is the novel research, which is based on the collaboration between partners, aiming to find complementary areas that the different project partners are working on to facilitate research exchanges and achieve a greater output than would be achieved if the partners were operating separately. And the third aspect is spreading of excellence, which is related to the dissemination aspects of the project and interactions with the prominent bodies in the cognitive radio world which could advance its applicability, such as standards groups and regulators. As regards the research part of the project, it's split into three areas, which are broadly built on the cognition cycle. There's fundamentals and platforms, which is essentially the enabling technologies of the project, such as game theory, for example, and the various hardware platforms that might be used, including the Eurocom open air interface and USRP as a couple of examples there. There's context awareness and learning work packages, and there's decision making and action work packages. The types of applications that the project aims to cover include the cognitive radio, dynamic spectrum allocation, opportunistic spectrum access, in general the range of dynamic spectrum access technologies. They include self-organizing networks, which might encompass also cognition in the self-organizing process rather than just pure decision rules, and optimization of legacy networks based on a range of novel approaches. Okay, so that concludes my part. I'm going to hand over now to Kamil Chudas, who's going to introduce the Industry Partnership Programme.
Thank you, Oliver, for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Kamil Chudas from EIT Plus, and on the beginning I would like to apologize because, as you know, my boss, Dr. Radosław Piesiewicz, should be here, but as Oliver said, he just couldn't come. So if you have nothing against, I will speak on behalf of my boss. Okay, work package. Okay. That's very more convenient. Work package 16 in ACROPOLIS aims to develop a partnership with industry, and the aim is to promote the output of our network of excellence and get meaningful input from the industry sector. So it shouldn't be a dissemination, but more interaction with industry. But this is a theory, and let me introduce you basic information about our main activities within work package 16. I am glad that since September, since July, we have our external advisory committee. Currently it consists of 5 members representing industry sector, and 1 member, currently my boss, who is some, I would say, middleman, who should push this industry uptake in network of excellence. It's notable that members of external advisory committee are allowed to, for example, comment our technical reports and so on. On the other hand, the aim is to transfer ACROPOLIS outputs to this EAC members, and in order to make them make it possible to circulate this ACROPOLIS outputs in their industry environment. Another activity are industry workshops, and as you see, this is not only a virtual assumption, but some real activity. And of course, main aim is to disseminate industry viewpoints in order to better steer the research direction in ACROPOLIS. Another aim is to disseminate ACROPOLIS outputs, and we will do that in future industry workshops, when we should propose some demonstrations and poster sessions maybe. Okay, we have our e-newsletter issued quarterly, and I am glad that in fourth issue of ACROPOLIS newsletter, new industry section was launched. So now this newsletter is more and more interesting, not only to ACROPOLIS partners, but in particular to external audience, I would say, in particular industry audience. Okay, and in the beginning of September we have also launched industry section of our ACROPOLIS web portal, and the aim is to make some convenient platform where people interested in cognitive communications could exchange their ideas, their viewpoints, in particular to facilitate this interaction between ACROPOLIS researchers and representative of industry sector. As you see, current industry section contents, there is some information, basic information about industry partnership program, about announcements about industry workshops. There are listed our external advisory committee members. Some, I think, quite interesting subsection is interview with an expert, and at the moment we are preparing interview with Dr. Przemysław Pawełczak, and we are of course open for any question proposals. In download subsection you can find presentation about industry partnership program and consecutive issues of ACROPOLIS e-newsletter. In collaboration subsection you can find listed companies and other I don't know, for example, research units, external research units, which tend to collaborate with us. And CR related web pages. This is some base with interesting with links to interesting web pages. related, of course, with cognitive radio communication and other aspects being in line with ACROPOLIS interesting. Okay, so it's this only a few words about industry partnership program. I would also mention that in ACROPOLIS we have also work packages which are interested in business aspects, regulation and standardization, and I believe I see that they will support us in the establishment of this this partnership, this interaction with industry. Okay, so I think I reached the end of this short presentation. Maybe some questions or comments. I would like to back to this discussion in the end of today's industry panel, because to be honest, it is very important for us to know, to have some feedback from industry representatives in order to make tools that will be really interesting from industry point of view. It make no sense, as you know, to create something, some I don't know, web pages or subsections of newsletters if people are indeed not interested in that. So I would like to know your opinion on that. So I think we can start second part of this industry panel. It will be
okay, so for the first presentation on from the panelists, we have a presentation on cognitive radio issues, challenges and opportunities by Russell T. Singh from Telecordia Technologies in the USA.
So
thank you.
This is last.
Thank you. I think I don't need a microphone because it is a very exciting area. I'm very excited. So I was given 20 minutes. We'll talk about the cognitive radio network issues. Issues, of course, they have issues. Otherwise, we don't need to be here. And immediately, that remind me, 2005, 2006, I was in Washington, D.C., talked to one of the commissioner, the FCC. And then I used to handle the wireless program, so I have a high interest, know the detail, do the chip, do the access point, do the switching. So they said to me,
hello?
No, I don't need it. If you cannot hear me, for you, okay. Because today I will share you with some, but I will let you know, otherwise you will leave. Anyway, they say, Russell, how come that we issue that the spectrum, like the GD, the PCS spectrum around 2 gigahertz, and they realize that the license band is often underutilized. But is the license underutilized, unlicensed is overutilized. What's the best way to solve? They're starting to give all the research community at what they need to do. I said to him, Doctor, very easy. You talk to DARPA, you talk to NSA, let university professor and their graduate student to think about possibilities. So this is one issue. And then of course, then separately, that summer, I went back to my home country, Taiwan. As you know, that Taiwan is very good at the chip and manufacturing, but not so good for innovation. So they said, one of my good friends is the CEO of wireless operators. And he said, Russell, how can I make money, reduce ARPU, the total number per subscriber, how much they need to do, and also can give his the bottom line, the revenue, the profit keep going up. How can I do it? Because the entire population in Taiwan, only 23 million. I only have 4 million subscribers. how can I do it? Then that moment, because I start to think, and I have shown him one slide, then I will show you next. And then the opportunities. Today I will say, why didn't using these cognitive radio and networks? What kind of immediate opportunity? But also I have a dream. And then hopefully all the graduate students here to help me to make the dream, this conclusion. Okay? This is the view graph I show to my friend who is the CEO of operating company. I say, cognitive radio, forget the definition of everything because it means the software-defined radio plus cognitive engine. He said, Russell, cognitive engine, what do you mean? I say, I mean you have smart place, you know the intelligent, you know the surrounding intelligent, and you want to evaluate the situation. They doubt it. Then you make a decision. Then he, what's the software-defined radio? I say, software-defined radio very easy. First, use a firmware, use FPGA, then go to the chip. And that time, 2006, Taiwan use GSM. Okay. He said, I get a good idea. So this story for me, they use cognitive radio network philosophy, and then to create a cognitive business model, make it a lot of succeed. Here's the scenario. Everybody know that the Chinese divide by two parts. One called Taiwan, one called mainland China. One's big guy, used to be poor, right now the poor become a rich lady. Another is small. That means many businessmen in and out Taiwan and China. This is a scenario. Then this CEO said, I use my cognitive engine, human brain, to know the environment. This is a fact. And now, when I speak right now, both sides can in and out quite often. But I say, Mr. Chen, but Taiwan use GSM, and the big brother use CDMA 2000 Qualcomm. Cannot work. He said, Russell, you don't understand. Your technology is too innocent. You say, GSM, eventually we have a chip, right? TSMC just go to the chip. And that time, we use 1.5 micron. But when I do my first time, I got a team even in 2 micron technology. They say, right now is 65 micron. Okay, they use CDMA 2000, that's easy. I have one chip for GSM, one chip for CDMA 2000. And then because the people, the users, he carry like this one, you can say that's easy. There's a dual band and triple band. But you want to the machine to make a decision for you. Sometimes give you the probability maybe 99%, 1% did not work. My friend said, I use human brain, user to make decision. When they take off in Taipei, then in Beijing, he's in Beijing, he just switch there. Go to the CDMA 2000. Coming back, push back, it's a GSM. This is the kind of cognitive radio application. If you think about it, so you have software-defined radio, use 2 chips there, right? And then your cognitive engine, your human brain. So now the fundamental problem. Now you have to use cognitive procedures, use algorithm, use microprocessor. But 2006 smartphone still in and out. Steve Jobs did not come back, at least did not announce he has iPhone yet. And then of course you see that the technology enabling. That's what make all researchers, including me, we have a job, right? So from this, I go to the next is cognitive radio. There's no need for me to say that you already yesterday the whole day's meeting, today the whole day's meeting today. But among all those issues, if you go to any conference right now, I guarantee that conference, technical conference, 90%, 80% of the conference, all related to sensing. I guarantee that. Why? It's easy. Use NS2, NS3, and do the simulation. Input change one parameter, get output one paper, get two parameter, get two paper. So if you have two parameter, you should get 2 factorial papers. Later, I'm the researcher, so for professors, I'm sorry. But another thing is cooperative communications. Why we need that? Remember 2008, Microsoft. Why the Microsoft, Bill Gates would like to do? Why just stay in the window? Don't go in the wireless part, right? Because they see the window lifetime is pretty short already. I was told they make tons of money by Windows. So anybody want to create a new company in Microsoft, it's not easy. But that means they published the first paper 2008. That paper is a Wi-Fi for white space. Then the new protocol and flexible network architecture, this is indeed a challenge. I will show you one of immediately business case application, should have application to show you. Can be done, but if you don't have the protocol design, very high speed protocol design, that particular application, which I will describe to you in the 7th view graph, will not accomplish. If you can accomplish, that means your customer is 1 billion. By the way, the entire population on Earth right now is 7 billion at the most. Probably you can guess what kind of the field we will get into. And then the privacy and security, that's the orange and the burner says this is top #1 because in one hand, the country want to know what you are talking about every 10-year time. In other words, they say, no, we don't want to know you anything. So this kind of debate here. That's security, privacy, preserve, and security. For academic guys, this is, I think this should be in the top list. Pretty easy to get funding. And then, new business model. I would say one new business model. Like for instance, right now the cognitive radio, suppose if I put myself in the US right now, I have the Verizon Wireless. I pay, right? I pay fixed fee, all you can eat fixed fee. And I paid it. And then somehow I did not use that anymore. And then if you guys so good to develop a good cognitive radio handset, wireless handset, you say, oh, they have the Verizon's band, which is a licensed band, have some space, has space transfer, I can jump in. So you jump in, but you are secondary user and the primary user. Then I cannot jump in. If later on I cannot jump, how to solve the issue? What is the fairness? I don't know. So this one can be the issue, but I think game theory should solve it. But I don't know how. So that is the most important. New government regulation issue. For instance, the government said, forget white space. Forget it. I want to reserve until I really need money. The auction again. But right now the government say, yeah, white space in US is 700 megahertz. So they choose 9 companies, including our company, can be a vendor to use it. But nobody still want to commit. That's what Jim is in the greatest position. He's a consultant. Can give them all the consultant they would like to know. So that means that's what once technology and privacy security, my judgment is the most. And do the sensing part, I think right now all the root fundamental research problem has been solved. And the security, privacy, still a lot open research topics, and I will show what my view is. And new business models, since I'm not smart enough in the business, so I don't know how to solve, but indeed, how to get money, that is part. And then government regulation. So that the major challenge, I already say, here is spectrum policy, is the government, economics, basically is business model to today I specifically asked dynamic pricing. I did not invent it. That is one Professor Moon Jiang. He is the director of HLab in Princeton. Go to Google. I said, wow, 34 years old, the Princeton full professor got to be something good. Then get interested. No wonder. He told me, I want to see twice what they have. It's kind of any instantaneous time, his algorithm can see this network traffic. What the traffic, how many percent of the channel still available. His idea is, in US, many people we call underprivileged, the inner city people. They cannot afford this wireless, the $89, $100 per month. They cannot. However, the bandwidth usually, so after 10 p.m. to the next morning, is a lot of amplitude, the channels. They should use is much lower price. So his idea is every instantaneous time, he will know the traffic, the channel availability. Then I price it accordingly. I say, how you price it? He said, you read John Nash game theory, you come back talk to me. So that's what I'm reading game theory. That's what I said. The new business model, I think, is a dynamic spectrum management is fine, but I think more useful from business model point of view can develop a dynamic pricing because every instantaneous time you will have a customer. Okay? But the last, I did not invent this. I just summarized this for 37 pages of the NSF report in the United States. Get all the 24 professors get together. So what is the cognitive radio network future direction? So they only come to this one conclusion. Of course, I know what they want. They want NSF DARPA try to reserve more money and to give it to them. However, we come from poor country right now, so there's no money. But I'm hoping very much is I see many universities, and this yesterday's the talk, very nice done with the test bed, different test bed. However, you did not put all the different test bed together. Since we are in Barcelona right now, say for instance, in Barcelona, we have city-wise this kind of deployment use a different with a cost IC 020902 all the test bed. Then we have conduct a real concept and field trial. I guarantee these results will be very new, and if you can solve, I believe the 4 operators sit here this morning would love to use it, right? That's what I think. I think that the reason they did not use it, one of the many reasons, if I were them, I say this is an academic. Everything is a probability and scale. What do you mean by probability? So this is the message. I'm hoping that you agree with me. When you go home, you will take back this message. The others, like high-speed protocol design, yes, people did it all the time. I can give you how many milliseconds is my threshold, 20 milliseconds. If any one of you can find out, let me know. I need to use the vehicular networks, 20 milliseconds. Okay? And of course, I love this game theory for resource management. The professor here, Hanan, she added a good special issue on the green communications. So I read. But I still did not catch the paper. But she's here, I can ask her. Okay, so many here. I think that basically my fundamental, the technical issue or the problem, everybody more or less the same. I just give you a paper. You read it, you understand. But part is difficult. You want to catch this methodology, philosophy behind it. Why you are thinking do this? Why? Why they have a cognitive radio? Very simple. Is the license band is underutilized. Unlicensed band overutilized. Let's come to the fairness. In other words, you can counter back. All men are equal. Why one set of people very rich live in the seashore? Yesterday I saw a very nice house. Some of the people were very poor. Why? It's not fairness. So we need to find some kind of cognitive radio, like text. Rich people don't text poor people. It's a kind of cognitive radio. And then the second one is that the general policy, how to define a fair policy. Now, fair policy is the key, but it's difficult because you get five people behind. They have an organization called lobbyists, and then what do you do? So I don't know how long it will take them. So 2006 to 2011, they are still trying to develop a fairness. But fundamentally means that you use our technology, sensing, spectrum sensing, and you have high speed of the protocol process, and you can develop the algorithm and you can show its demo. But from software point of view, from real practical point of view, from telecom Italy point of view, okay, you just show me, yesterday I see 3 base stations. I said, Mamma mia, 3 base stations, of course it's perfect, but how about enlarge to 100, 1,000, 1 million? That's called scalability. Let's call it accountability, right, and reliability. Why I say that? As I said, that one of the technical questions shows the security and the privacy. We, under the contract from the United States Department of Transportation, $5 million, we developed an end-to-end privacy and security authentication process. And we give a key, public key, to test it. First, we have 100 cars. It's all beautiful. Then starting getting to 200 cars, starting to see some degradations. Then we go to the simulation. Then we found 1 million cars. The algorithms broke down the entire network. That means why the large-scale deployment is so important. I know why we break down the entire network by the simulation, because you need a key. Each car, you need a key. And the bad guy keep asking the key, and get 1 million. But how many cars in the United States have? It's 300 million people. I was told it's very close to 300 million cars. So that means still have a distance. How to do it? That's one, at least for us, is a key research topics. That's what it does. Car safety, mobility application, green environment. This is the 3 we would like to accomplish in the intelligent vehicle network. But I thought cognitive radio and network can solve quite lot of this application, of this objective, and I will describe it to you. And also, I believe we are one step closer to the universal handsets, and then create a new service for the TV white space, 700 megahertz. For instance, right now, if you have a cell phone, even you have a smartphone right now, a lot of processing power, but you underutilize your smartphone process power. You are in Spain, you go to Japan. I believe your cell phone will not work. If you go to Korea, will not work. These 2 countries, for some reason, they have a 3G and just one big difference cannot work. Then that means that if you have cognitive radio, can go to seamless loading and application section, the heterogeneous network, and you can save the energy to accomplish what we researcher has promised to operator. That means you have one universal phone. Then I will show you the one data. Why that's so market so big? Why? And the trend is coming. Okay. This one example I use because right now I'm doing the vehicular network here, and you can see that what we would like to do is that the car cross, like for instance, when you get out this, and maybe I have a Wi-Fi hotspot, and then I drive around like 2 kilometers, maybe I cross many Hi-Fi, and then I get out the city, no more Wi-Fi. Maybe they have a GSM, maybe they have a CDMA, maybe they have LTE. So this time, I really need the seamless roaming capability. It's a part of the feature we researchers has promised to do, right? This one. And then another one, people said, fentanyl sales. Fentanyl sales, you know, at home have the privacy. That's correct. You want the privacy, you want everything at home. But in the telematics and vehicular network, all the car accidents, at least in the United States, when you're in the traffic light, trying to turn left, that particular moment caused by the car accident is 75% among all the total 40,000 plus accidents per year is in the traffic light trying to turn left. Now, this time I can use fentanyl cell. In other words, all the car, because all the traffic light, maybe you guys did not know, is connected back somewhere. It's a standing still database, not the moving database. Stand still database control the break of the red light, green light, and yellow light, how many seconds they will go. Right? They control it. Now, if every car have this the gateway onboard unit in the car, and each onboard unit have cognitive radio can create their own fentanyl cell. When you are approaching the traffic light within 1 kilometer, and to many cars, then you can communicate with each other with the traffic light, and at least our simulation shows can significantly reduce the car accident. Simulation shows. Now we try to use LTE based car with the onboard unit there, and then to see the real track to see if it is true or not. So this is the beautiful, typical example which will help to save my life, for instance. So I just quickly use these two examples. If you agree with this, the challenge will be each car, V to V, talk to each other. Car to car talk to each other. Right now, we talk to each other through the base station. And the message will be delayed at least more than 20 milliseconds, right? We need a car to car directly. Then car to the roadside access point to internet there. So this is the customer for you. Every single car. Now on Earth, they have 1 billion cars. Now, if every car, if the government make a regulation mandate, every car has to have a telematics capability, put it, right now it's a navigation system, make that navigation system smarter for onboard units. That means cognitive radio get immediately all the car manufacturer or sell in the United States 300 million, we should have it, right? And by year of 2013, even earlier than the Telefonica, 2013, the Department of Transportation will make announcement mandate whether they should or you should not have telematics capability. Announce it plus 5 years, every party should have it. My guessing is they will announce it. Why? They already spent billions of dollars to do R&D. They better to deliver something. And then it's good for that each individual. So many trials, but small scale. When I say small scale, the 2,000 car trial is still successful. Okay, it's called that V2V, V2I telematics. Now, this, if all the students pay attention to this chart. This chart, I believe, is at the Star Ledger. It's 3 weeks ago, pretty new. And Source Nielsen is very credible. In the entire United States, traditional cell phone, smartphone, this one is at the end of second quarter. That means the traditional cell phone already dropped to 51%, and the smartphone dropped to 49%. And then they predict probably October or November will cross it, which I believe it completely. If this is the case, look, smartphone have a database, and the iPhone, they can have multiple gigabits, and they have a lot of processing power, even 1.34, 1 gigahertz. The processing power is there. They are waiting for us as the R&D community to tell them what kind of sensing algorithm we should use and what kind of protocol process algorithm we should use. They can burn into here. So that the opportunity is tremendous. If we are lucky, get the results the operator wants, then here is my dream. This is called universal Wi-Fi set. And the next year, the problem, and I guarantee that the smartphone will going up. So this one, so I thank you for everybody. Right? By the way, you know English, you know Spanish. Quiz for you. What the third one? It's Polish. Huh? Polish. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Russell. A very interesting presentation. Are there any questions?
Any question? No? That means you believe it or you don't believe it? Yes, Jim.
Well, DSRC and 11P have been coming along any day now for a decade and a half. I guess
no,
repeat.
this is recorded, so I cannot comment DSRC.
Well, when do you think they're actually be done technically?
You know, I cannot answer because US EOT will use DSRC to do safety pilot trial. They use safety pilot trial 2,000 times. Whether DSRC is the right access technology to use or not, you can listen to my talk tomorrow with complete full blown. So probably the smart people like you already know my answer. Yeah, the DSRC originally designed for when you go to this the paper, you have the infrared or microwave, you paper automatic. Did you realize it's one car? But if I have to do V2V, if I'm the leading car and 10 cars behind me, I'm sharp curve, I will broadcast message out to the car behind me. Second car, certainly. Immediately second, X% packet were lost. Then Y% packet were lost. Of course, you can use, you add layer can enhance it, but you lose the capability, so-called low cost. The other concern I have strictly from the hardware. If you really want to do what to cover the entire potential wireless access, you have to from say 700 megahertz all the way up to that LNTS 35 gigahertz. That means that your front end RF amplifier is a wideband RF. They just tell me how expensive or how inexpensive it will be. This can be a very interesting practical issue. Okay. Yes, Professor.
Yeah, I don't know. Thank you very much for an interesting presentation. I can relate to the fact that about 25 years ago, at least 25 years ago, the Department of Transportation of the United States and the state of California had a very big program called Intelligent Vehicle Highway Systems. And 25 years later, it's still not there. And if you really think hard about it, it's probably not a technology question, it's a liability question.
Liability. If I drink a coffee,
automakers do not want to insert technology for which they might be held accountable should things go wrong. So the real question is, how do you bypass that ever?
In the United States, the GM have an OnStar, telematic service, and Ford have a Sync. So basically, they will know every instant of time your cars, where you are, every information. But if you don't want to use it, you have to sign something.
That's individual.
Individual.
Information to you.
Right.
Talking about transferring information to somebody else, that's what you need to write to the I start broadcasting information,
that's very practical because in the United States we have more lawyers than engineers. Right. Yeah, it's liability. It's indeed an issue, but the market tomorrow I will show you the data market. Immediately you will know immediate market where it is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks again. The second presentation is on the topic of ITU activity concerning cognitive radio systems, and it's by Frederick Lewiczki from Orange Labs in Poland.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me here for this very interesting event. I will have pleasure to present you ITU activity concerning cognitive radio system. I think that ITU is very important in this field, so I hope that this information will be valuable for you. ITU is a very old organization. It is founded in 1865, so it is oldest specialized agency in United Nations. So it is a part of United Nations. Its main role is to prepare standards. It is the first activity. It's now contain 191 member states and over 700 private sector entities. It includes telecom operators, manufacturers, and similar entities. Headquarters is in Geneva. It has 11 regional offices and contain 3 sectors. Oh, excuse me.
The side wheel, side on the side.
On the side.
Use this wheel, and you can go forth and back.
Oh, maybe that. But it is also not operating in this direction. Okay, so as I said, it contains 3 sectors. ITU-D, it is sector for support to developing countries. Then it is ITU-R, radio communication sector, and it is take most part of my presentation. And there is ITU-T, telecommunication standardization sector. During lunch break, I have decided to add one slide to my presentation because it was a rather big discussion concerning also impact on climate change. So I have added also such information here. And as you can see, in ITU-T, climate change is considered and it is included in study group 5 with name Environment and Climate Change, in which this subject is under responsibility of Working Party 3, ICT and Climate Change. Sorry for not correct wording, but it was prepared in a hurry during break, as I said. So during, for example, during the last meeting in Seoul, it was in the end of September this year, 4 new recommendations have been consented. And for example, method to provide recycling information of rare metals in ICT products. Green data center development best practices, methodology for energy consumption and greenhouse emission impact assessment, for technologies in organization and also for goods, networks and services. So as you can see, ITUT is now extensively working on the ICT impact on climate change, starting on phase of production, then to operation, and after finishing of the operation for the recycling period, in order to assess impact on the environment, all positive and negative factors, and to take them into account and present to the public. I can tell you that all ITUT recommendations now are freely available, free of charge, so you can load them with no problem. However, these 4 last one are consented under study group 5. Now they are under approval procedure, and after approval procedure they will be present on the ITU website on the link given here. Because the policy of ITU is that temporary document, working document drafts are only available to sector and sector members. Final documents are available for all entities. Now I am coming back to main part of my presentation, because of course cognitive radio systems are mainly considered in ITU-R sector, in radio communication sector. And as you know, in the next year we will have World Radio Conference, WRC 2012. It is a very important event because World Radio Conference, it is a decision maker, so it can make any decision which then are in force for the international world. So, as concerning national regulation, national regulatory body may give rules, but on international basis, WRC is most important. So this meeting will be in Geneva, Switzerland, in January and February next year. It is according to resolution 956 from previous World Radio Conference, which asked ITU to work in the area of software-defined radio and cognitive radio systems. So in this World Radio Conference there is agenda item 1.19 dealing with this subject. So the work of ITU is organized in such a way that this World Radio Conference makes some approval, policy, political decision. It is very big conference, including almost all countries. It is very difficult during such a meeting to come to solutions. So during between World Radio Conferences, study groups and working parties are working, preparing documents for the approval. So as concerning World Radio Conference, as I said, it will be considered these 2 subjects. In ITU, cognitive radio system is almost everywhere connected with software-defined radio. As I said, input documents for consideration will be prepared in study groups, and it is under the question 241. The question is also important because question open subject. Without question, subject couldn't be discussed, couldn't be developed. If we have such question, then it is open floor for discussion, for contribution, for preparation of recommendation, resolutions, and so on, reports. So for the cognitive radio system, the most relevant are in ITU-R study group 1, working party 1B, and in ITU-R study group 5, 2 working parties, working party 5A and working party 5D. I will shortly describe their work. Study group 1, it is study group working mainly with spectrum management, and working party 1B is dealing with methodologies and economic strategies. So it is mainly regulatory issues, and spectrum management. In contrary, study group 5, it is more technical body, and working party 5A is dealing with land mobile services, excluding IMT, and working party 5D is dealing with IMT systems. So both these working parties are active in technical aspects of the implementation of the cognitive radio systems and preparing reports and recommendations. ITUR World Radio Conference recognized that cognitive radio system is very important issue. So you see that there is resolution, there is dedicated working parties, but the common concern between ITUR is that protection of existing services from potential interferences is the most important fact. And here the base are radio regulations. You can see here it is very big document presented in 4 tomes with attached ITUR recommendations, and it is like a radio communication Bible. If there is any problem, if there is any conflict, especially on international scale, then any administration may send a letter to ITU, especially to RRB, which is Radio Communication Regulatory Board, for consideration and decision. So any specific service using cognitive radio system should operate in accordance with provisions of the radio regulations. If radio regulations will be enough developed in order to implement cognitive radio system, then we have to ask for some changes, modification, expansion of these radio regulations. I will not discuss this, all these items because earlier most of them was presented. I would like only to mention that we have to take into account that we have many passive services using spectrum, but they are passive. So spectrum sensing do not show us that these services exist. Also, there is some established local quiet or coordination zones. So searching of spectrum sensing is not enough to be sure that we do not introduce disturbances to existing services that, according to radio regulations, should be protected. Both geolocalization capabilities and knowledge of local spectrum regulation should be used, and also spectrum sensing. As concerning agenda item 1.19, there is proposed some methods. And methods A is dealing with software-defined radio, so I do not discuss it here, present here. Method B is dealing with cognitive radio system, and I can say you that we have 3 possibilities, and in all of them, up to now, there is proposed no change to radio regulations. But in method B1, option A, it is proposed also does not provide the guidance for studies and provisions for the implementation of cognitive radio system. It means that if it will be approved, ITU will not work in this subject. I think it is very, very small probability that this version will be accepted. In option B, ITU will provide an ITU resolution providing a guidance for further studies on cognitive radio systems. So provides a framework of further studies, but does not provide provision for the implementation. In method B2, it will add resolution providing a guidance for further studies and a guidance for the use of cognitive radio system, and no other changes to radio regulation. So it still means that does not provide provisions for the implementation of cognitive radio system. But I hope that this last proposal, B2, more wide, will be better acceptable and will be the decision. As concerning ITUR Working Party 5A, it is more technical approach. And here it's also, I do not touch all subjects because we have, I think, no time and it was discussed many times. But I have to say that because of political reasons, for example, report ITUR LMS CRS has been divided into two parts. Part one, which is almost agreed, developed, not controversial, and part two, which is still under development, which raises discussion. And why? Because part one, it is very big probability that it will be approved. Part two require time to convince all administrations to approve it. You have to remember that it is 191 administrations, some of them from developed countries, some of them from developing countries, and many of the developing countries have many hesitation as concerning this new technology because they have not enough money, for example, to implement them. So this also have to be taken into account. When I have some information concerning technical approach, I will not touch them. And I have to add that also ITUR Working Party 5D is dealing with the technical approach, and now is prepared a draft of a new report, Cognitive Radio System Specific to IMT Systems. It is still under development, so it is temporary document. It contains many technical information. I have to add that ITU Working Party 5D is working in close cooperation with ITUR Working Party 5A. This cooperation is mainly by cross-participation and via liaison statements. In this working party, very active is Orange France Telecom. I give here information as concerning next meeting of this ITU events, because maybe you will think that it is a good idea to contribute to this work, to send contribution, to be active, to have influence of these results. So, as I said, World Radio Conference will be in the beginning of next year in Geneva. Working Party 1B will have meeting after this conference, which is in June 2012. Working parties 5A and 5D will meet in near future in the end of this year. Coming back to summary, software-defined radio and cognitive radio systems may substantially increase the spectrum efficiency. However, existing services, including passive systems, have to be protected. ITU is active on this subject based on the contribution from all administration and sector members. So all of you can send contribution and can have influence on the recommendations and reports of ITU. The last bullet says that most new systems are using COFDM modulation. As you can see, wireless access, the last version of Wi-Fi and WiMAX are using COFDM. All digital broadcasting is using COFDM modulation. LTE, mobile communication of fourth generation, use COFDM modulation. It's, for me, looks that if all systems, almost different kind, will use the same type of modulation, because of its many big advantages, will help us to implement cognitive radio system. Because currently we have many different systems, so to manage all of them is much more difficult. Thank you for attention.
Okay, thank you, Frederick, for an excellent presentation and an especially relevant one given the importance of regulation to the realization of cognitive radio systems and other dynamic spectrum access related technologies. I think there's time for one quick question.
Hello, Preben Mogensen from Aalborg University. Just a comment to your last bullet point that all systems use this COFDM. This is correct today, and I fully agree with you. But if you look into what is hot in research, it seems like we are going back to non-orthogonal modulation schemes again, like wideband CDMA or something new. So is this something you have discovered that this may not be correct in the future?
You see, I said here not very strongly, it is most new systems, and it is my opinion, my personal opinion. As concerning CDMA, I think that it is now clearly visible that generation 3 of mobile communication, which using CDMA, is not so good as 4th generation planned for use using COFDM. So it is my impression that this technology will be the winner because, as I said, the first work was in 1992 for digital radio, instead of FM. And then was many different subjects, and now DAB is not successful. But this technology is coming wider and wider to mobile communication, to wireless access to internet, to any other systems. So it looks that it is really good because of it, but I think there is no time to speak about of advantages of this modulation type.
Okay, thanks again, Frederick. I think we should move on to the next presentation, which is entitled A Fixed Operator View on Cognitive Radio Technologies, and it's given by Dr. Michael Fitch of BT.
This is the second time I've been up here today. My apologies. I got that picture from the Birds film. It's not BT copyright. My apologies for that as well. Okay, so it's a lot of overlap with the first talk I gave this morning, so I'll just skip through just about the first half of it. Okay, let's just head into it. So, what are the drivers behind what we're doing as far as we can see here at BT? One is higher data rates and more users, and as has been said before, you need large signal strength, which means you need impossible transmit powers over long distances for large cells, even if you have infinite bandwidth. But you do also need infinite bandwidth, so you need large spectrum use, which you can't have, so you need to reuse the spectrum over shorter distances, and both of those are tending towards smaller cells, including increasingly self-install, and this is making planning infeasible. Now, you can get planning tools, but still most broadcasters, mobile operators have drive-round tests to improve the network topology. I think planning is becoming infeasible, so we're heading more and more towards self-organizing networks. And as I said earlier, energy improves with smaller cells, but the backhaul is challenging. So smaller cells means greater energy and complexity in the backhaul as well. The driver 2 is the regulatory driver, away from the binary licensed unlicensed case. So the top two rows there, the licensed, unlicensed, you've got examples there, GSM, 3G, unlicensed equipment, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. And typically they come from opposite angles. So the top line there is high power radio planning. They're suffering from spectrum shortage and expensive spectrum. And in the middle row there you've got low power, unplanned. And then suddenly you get this spectre of shared spectrum, e.g. TV white space, which is moved more towards medium power in between those two guys, and dynamic planning, all leading towards this wonderful vision I have of flexible radios, intelligent use of spectrum resources. An estimated timeline, kind of we're about here, with 2 to 5 years of deployment. So, the next 2 slides are the same as I presented earlier, so I'm not going to go through those. And use of TV white space is free, but one problem is, of course, we've heard from all speakers, no harmful interference to the primary users. So here we have a situation where there's a protection margin around the TV coverage here, and it's around all the transmitters, and some have overlapping areas, so you can argue that there's no space at all for the TV white space system in those areas. However, in this case where you've got same channel in a different area, the wanted to unwanted signal should be around 50 dB. So given the relative powers of these guys, you have to organise your TV white space system so that the guy here doesn't interfere with the TV set on the margin coverage from the TV broadcast transmitter. So it depends a lot on what type of antenna this guy's got. It depends on the antenna this guy's got. So I think there's a lot of work to be done on antenna types and heights, okay, to actually work out where these TV white space systems can operate without interfering. And then you get the opposite case where you're in the same area but on a different channel, and the TV white space signal not to spill too much across the wanted signal in this case, and it's difficult for the adjacent channel. I searched everywhere, and you may know where there's a specification for this. I searched everywhere for a specification on TV receivers. What is their immunity to interference? There's no specification. I don't think, at least I couldn't find one. And we did some measurements on a zoo, on a collection of television receivers, and we found actually it's about 55 dB rejection, but that's at the adjacent channel, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. There's very little selectivity in the front ends of these things, in these tuners, okay? So this kind of applies wherever you are in the spectrum. The adjacent channel is no worse. And the reason the adjacent channel is a problem is because of the OFDM from the TV white space system will generate splash in its adjacent channels more than it will in the ones further away. And so I tend to agree that OFDM is probably not the best modulation scheme for this, actually, because you need a great deal of linearity in the transmitters associated with the TV white space system to achieve this sort of rejection in your adjacent channel. And there are other techniques like filter block modulation, and even companies like Newell are going back to a single carrier modulation scheme in order to get these kinds of limits. Otherwise, you can't operate in that condition. Okay, we've been through that slide. Oh, I'm going backwards, aren't I? Sorry. So, by the way, that slide there I described this morning as well. So, regulatory position briefly. Considerable effort we needed to establish the trust with regulators and the primary users of the spectrum. We're finding it an uphill struggle with the BBC, for example, because they're arguing that these protection margins should exist for TV receivers that are not looking at the preferred transmitter, but looking at another one because they either choose to or it's a mistake, and even with portable televisions in the home, which, if you incorporate all that, the protection margins get so big actually that the amount of TV white space tends towards zero, and the BBC would not be at all upset about that. So for operators like ourselves who are interested in using this stuff, actually it's a bit of an uphill battle, and a lot of work to be done associated with the regulators to kind of put some reason around some reasonable limits in there. Several trials are running in the US in their TV spectrum, and I think in the US the certification procedure is that the TV white space equipment is certified along with the database it's going to be used with. You have to specify it, but I don't see that happening in the UK. There are test beds in the UK, Cambridge Wireless and BT, which you've been through, with test licenses. Ofcom in the UK indicate a 2-year process, and they can see a soft launch being able to be taken place in 2013. Europe, as far as I can see, will move slowly with much caution. I say we're working with them. The EC project Cosmos, which I manage, has got an external advisory board which is consisting largely of European regulators and broadcasters. And what I see is that the situation is not at all uniform. You have French and German regulators who are very cautious about it, especially Germany, given its position with neighbours, and there's probably no white space at all in Germany, according to the broadcast regulators there. Maybe not for the raw broadband case, but maybe for indoor use, don't know. Yet you get others like Finland and Switzerland, Holland, and certainly the UK is actually keen to proceed. So there's a lot of non-uniformity across Europe. I'm not sure that we can rely on SE43 to remove that in the time. So we need more initiatives, I think, to line up across Europe to give a suitable size market for vendors to take us seriously on white space equipment. At the moment, you approach vendors like Alcatel, Huawei. They're more interested in producing stuff for the LTE market at the moment. The market's just too small to attract the large vendors, and we need to put that right. So it's what I was speaking about earlier. We need to build the value chain better. The standards we've been talking about. So the standards bodies are many, and I, for example, do not know which ones to support. So coexistence with other users, I think most of these topics have been covered. DTV receivers have got unknown location. Radio microphones have got unknown location as well. The database is one way to know where they are, but microphone users have to register. There's a diagram in a minute. The database has to be checked at every 2 hours in square brackets, but I think that can be dynamically adjustable. Radio microphones occupy something like 200 kilohertz of spectrum. They run on analog FM mostly, so several tens can fit into a single TV channel, but some events use hundreds of them, so they can't fit into 1 or 2 channels. And I'm not sure that they are packed very efficiently, or indeed they can be because of intermodulation problems that they have at these events. They have to spread themselves out, and I think there's software available to guide them into which channels to use that are likely to be free. Fairness and etiquette does not concern the regulators, and sensing, I think, will be needed, but to sense other secondary users. And in BT we have such a database. This is the database structure that Ofcom are recommending, and what they will run is 3 entities. One is a list of databases. Okay. They will run a list which is third-party databases of ones that they have approved. They will also run 2 what I call repositories of information. One is the digital television coverage database, and the other one is the wireless microphone usage database. And there will be many third-party databases on the list which have access to this information, equal access. And a master TV white space device will need to consult the list and then choose a third-party database to work with and to return information to, and so on. And this etiquette, I can only think, must run, the fairness etiquette, I think, must run between third-party databases. And the master station talks to the database, and somehow, which is undecided, the slave follows, or the slaves follow. So this information that goes along here gives the location of the master and an uncertainty associated with where the slaves are, and preferably, I think, information like antenna directivity and the shape of this topology, so the answer it gets back is not too conservative. So I think lots of you in this room have seen these slides, particularly in FP7 projects that we're both involved in. But this database for instance, we've got running on a live server. Anybody can look at it. I'll send the URL around tomorrow or something. But if you click on a location, actually it works almost anywhere in Europe now. I think it's been expanded with knowledge of where the European transmitters are. It returns to you a list of a list of channels that you can use and powers without interfering with the TV services, and it does its own calculations on TV broadcast coverage and protection margins. And it provides back to you channels, the power levels, the duration of access, which at the moment is fixed at 2 hours, I think, and directivity. But I think we've expanded it beyond the UK now. I'm not sure it's all European countries, but I know Portugal's done, Spain's done. So the conclusion of this is we all complete our trials, which I spoke about this morning, and expand it to other areas. We want to build up the ecosystem. The MAC layer needs work, as I said this morning. We need to develop the business case further, and the big hurdle is the regulators and the broadcasters and actually being able to use this stuff. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks Mike for an excellent presentation. I suggest that if there are any questions, they take place in the coffee break, and we return here at 4 o'clock sharp for the resumption.
I